have for a thrill. We have stories of the dead coming back
to life, tales of the
night evil.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
The All-American Spookshow.
Hello, and as always, welcome to another edition of the All-American Spookshow Podcast. I'm Josh, and as always, I'm joined with my pal Will.
Yes, sir.
And the Professor Smoke.
Hey, hey.
And welcome to a new decade. It's kind of a New Year's 2020, so it's the beginning of a new decade. I guess the Roaring 20s, however everyone's going to eventually call it, or the Shitty 20s, whatever. This is the first podcast of the next decade from us. So it's kind of a, we'll have a little bit of a side bit. We'll talk about some stuff from the past decade. But the main event today is we're going to be talking about the film from last year, 2019, Brightburn. I guess it's definitely a horror movie, but it's not necessarily all horror movie. It's a kind of a cross-genre type of movie, wouldn't you say? Like, probably falls in 3 or 4 different categories.
Oh yeah. And
that's by James Gunn, who, he was the executive producer of it. It was, obviously has his finger in Guardians of the Galaxy pie. He's all, that's his world. So that's kind of what you're in for today. Is we'll talk about him and Brightburn and everything. But I guess before we get too deep into things, Will, what have you been up to lately since last year?
Same old, just working. Haven't got a ton of movies in here lately. Besides Spies in Disguise. So I'm sure we'll be hitting that one pretty soon on the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's that. We've actually got the next couple of episodes planned out, but that's the next one, so we can just go ahead and add it in. Spies in Disguise.
A little small indie film called Star Wars.
Yeah, of course.
That's about it.
Smoke, what about you? Been catching up on anything interesting lately?
Not well. Movie-wise, when it's going to be on my next 7 days off, I'm going to be catching up because I still haven't seen Star Wars yet. I want to see that movie Underwater, and I'd like to see 1917 too, the World War I movie. So
wait a minute,
I got to catch up on all those.
You want to see Star Wars Underwater? I don't understand.
I want to see Star Wars Underwater in 1917.
All right, well, it makes sense.
Someone there's a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah,
long time ago, 1917.
Yeah, where the Gungans lived underwater.
That's right. Underwater. With the Gungans, is that what you said?
Yeah. You can hang out with Jar Jar.
That's right. But as far as watching so far, movie-wise, I haven't seen a whole lot here recently that's new, but I've been catching up on, well, I haven't been catching up on it, but been rewatching The Office. Like I said, my wife had never really watched any of the episodes before for whatever reason. She had just missed out on it, so we started watching it from season 1. Mm-hmm. I think we're caught up to like season 3 now.
Yeah, there's actually an Office connection to today's movie, Brightburn.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And Tiana, my wife, picked it out. Like I didn't even realize it when the first time around that we saw Brightburn in the theater. I didn't even really. I mean, I knew he was familiar. He had the beard and everything, but I hadn't seen The Office in a while. I hadn't seen that guy in a while, and didn't really connect with it then. And then when we were just watching it the other night again, she's like, "Oh, that's what's his name from The Office?"
Yeah, myself, I've actually been catching up on. I've been trying to catch up on some movies that came out in the last year. I finally got around to watching Midsummer. Which that movie is. I don't even know what to think about that movie, man. That thing's an acid trip.
It
is odd.
I do love that one.
It's really good. It was really good. It's just odd. Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing I can say about it. And I'm sure we'll get around to that sooner or later here on the show.
I
also watched the movie that came out last summer called Crawl. Did you get a chance to see? Yeah. Well, you might like that. You'd probably like that one more than Midsummer, if I had to guess. By some a girl and her father trapped up underneath a house during a hurricane, and there's alligators.
I think I remember the previews for it.
It was better than I thought. It was better than I gave it credit to be. I thought. I mean, it was pretty good.
Yeah, we saw it in the theater, and it was like a little sleeper type movie. I mean, we saw the trailer and wanted to see it in the theater, but didn't really expect much out of it. Just thought it would be a fun little popcorn movie. Yeah, it did turn out better than expected.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably where I would classify it. A fun little matinee type flick,
Yep.
It ain't The Godfather, but it ain't supposed to be either. So it's pretty good. It just is what it is. But
it's no Lake Placid 3, but
yeah, of course not.
What is? Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that I had fairly low expectations for, and I was pleasantly surprised. So that's all you can ask for.
True.
And I just finished watching Ready or Not. Have you seen that one yet, Smoke?
Yeah, I saw that one. And that was the one with the games, right? With the board game Empire guy. Yeah,
that was pretty damn good.
That was another one of those that I personally didn't expect much from it, other than just kill an hour and a half at the theater, maybe it'll be all right, and then ended up liking it quite a bit.
Which kind of leads me into what we're going to discuss here for the next few minutes. Is so we figured we'd kind of have a little bit of fun, and we'll talk about some of our favorite movies from the last decade. I mean, we're not going to go over pour over a 1,000 movie list here. Just kind of, we'll give you our top 3, maybe in no certain order, from the last decade or so. We kind of recommend you go check out. I wouldn't necessarily say any of those movies I just mentioned would make my top 3 per se, but all of those were really good, and I would definitely recommend them. And like you said, The Crawl and Ready or Not, kind of like underrated. Maybe not underrated. Just kind of come out of left field. Like you don't really have high expectations, and then they kind of surprise you. So there was a lot of those in the last decade, though, in my opinion. There was some good quality horror films in the last 10 years. I mean, you could definitely make the argument that it was better than the previous 10 years before that, right? Say 2000 to 2009, 2010 to 2019 were
pretty hard pressed to come up with a list for that without really doing some research. I mean, I'm from 2000 2009.
Yeah, and you'd have to dig a little
dry
bit.
spells for really good stuff.
So, Will, did you come up with any movies that you really enjoyed over the last 10 years?
I personally loved it. Like both I guess chapters of that.
I'm sorry, before you move on, you actually had that one on your top 13 list that we did on YouTube, right? The top 13 like favorite horror movies of all time list that we did back before Halloween.
I loved it. Yeah. Honestly, I think I was probably a little biased with that one too, though, because I had read the book within the past couple of years. So I think the other two I came up with was Conjuring and Get Out.
It's hard to argue those. Matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and jump ahead since you just said them. I had The Conjuring and It, the first one, on my list. But instead, it's hard to argue with Get Out. That was damn good. But I'm gonna have to lean towards Hereditary on mine, man. That was a damn good movie, and not even so much like it's like the best movie you've ever seen or anything like that. But that movie like truly haunted me afterwards. Like I couldn't stop thinking about it for like a week or so after that. What about you, Smoke?
Yeah, that actually kind of transitions into my list as well. Hereditary. I'll go with my top, because I can pick my top one in the last decade so far, and it's been Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Yeah, I almost put that one on mine.
I love that movie. It's just it's a polarizing type movie, though, because some people will watch it and they'll absolutely hate it. Mm-hmm. So even when it first came out, it was that way. Even now, people who haven't seen it, you go on the internet, you'll see all kind of reviews for it and praising it, and some just hating on it. So it struck me as one of those like just hit a home run for me. And I think that kind of was one of those first movies that kind of set the ball in motion there for that type of horror that's not 100% horror, at least not in the traditional sense. And, it's about art house elements and everything comes into play, non-traditional type storyline and everything that leads into Hereditary, which that was my number 2 pick, was Hereditary as well. Yeah, I think definitely an innovative film. Like you're saying, it makes you think and really gets under the skin.
Yeah, man, that movie, like I'm telling you, like when you watch that, you're sitting there like for like the next 5 or 10 minutes after, like, damn.
Yeah. Good
Lord, what was that? It's almost like going past a car wreck that somebody died. It's like there's this morbid sense that comes over you, like, Jesus. I don't know. I can't explain it any other way. That's just kind of the way it hit me. I don't know. Maybe that's weird, but it was damn good. We should get around to watching that one on the podcast here, just so Will will watch it, because I know he's probably not going to go watch it otherwise. So there were some really, I mean, as you can see from, kind of our little mini list there, there were some really good ones in the last decade. I mean, like, I'm just looking at like a kind of an unparticular list here. It Follows from 2014.
Yes, see, that's another great one.
Yeah, 2011, The Cabin in the Woods. which that movie's not completely not what you think it is, even based on the name and the way they marketed it, right? Like it's completely over here by the time you get to the end of it.
Oh yeah.
The Babadook. Another one of those like jacked out movies, that kind of makes you dwell on it a little while afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Like I was just talking about Midsummer. Don't Breathe.
I was about to mention Don't Breathe too. Yeah.
A Quiet Place. I'm pretty sure I think every single Conjuring universe movie came out in the last decade too. So I guess that'll kind of be what the decade is remembered for, really, if you think about it. Like the big budget or the money the movies that made a huge the movies that made huge amounts of money, like both those It movies. The remake of Halloween,
Insidious, the whole Insidious, I think, didn't that come out in 2010?
I think you're right. If not all of them, pretty much all of them in the last decade. A Quiet Place was very successful. Even some of the, and obviously the streaming, the rise of the streamers, right, in the last 10 years, how all these streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, even Disney Plus, which is a more recent one, but still, like, they've all gave rise, maybe not Disney Plus, but all those other ones all have their place for horror, right? Even like Netflix makes a lot of, original horror, although it's kind of devoid of like any older stuff anymore on there. But they still make good horror series and horror movies on Netflix. So that'll kind of be what the decade's remembered for as well too. Yeah, just tons of good stuff. I mean, more than we could probably sit here and recommend, and we'd sit here for the next 30 minutes talking about it. The remake, even some remakes like Evil Dead, the Evil Dead remake.
Yeah.
What We Do in Shadows. That was kind of a weird, or like kind of a comedic look at vampires and stuff. Just tons of them. Lights Out, Happy Death Day, both those movies. Just a lot of good stuff.
The Green Room. That was another one. I thought it was another one of those that played off of not strictly horror, but definitely has that horror element in place.
And what about Catwoman? Oh wait, that was before the last.
I think that was a horror movie from the first decade.
Pretty terribly horrible.
I think Catwoman gets brought up every other episode as a horror movie at this point. I think the one that we're about to talk about today, Brightburn, you got to kind of include that on the list too. Although maybe not completely your traditional horror, it's definitely a horror movie, in my opinion. Yeah. So, I mean, that you can throw this one in there as well.
I think that's one of the interesting things, too, about that whole decade is, especially as it got near the end, halfway through the decade or so, is these movies coming out there they don't, try to strive to be just strictly horror. They use a lot of elements from horror and from other genres and put it together. And it's not some kind of cheap way, like in, sometimes back in the 90s when a filmmaker or a production studio didn't want to be associated with horror. They'd make horror movies, but they didn't want to call them horror movies. It's a thriller or whatever. So we don't want to call it horror. But nowadays, they're whether they call it horror or not, they're using these elements and combining them with other genres and doing it in a way that works.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a good decade for sure. There's tons of good movies. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us at allamericanspookshow@gmail.com. If you have any questions or you just want to trash Will or anything like that, you can email that there.
Wait, what?
So we have a Twitter account. It's at AA Spook Show. On Instagram.
No, is that a thing?
Facebook and YouTube. You can look up All-American Spook Show and you'll find us there. You can also look us up.
Is this thing on?
We have a TeePublic page. You can just look up All-American Spook Show. You'll find that. Logoed merchandise, shirts, mugs. Hoodies, I guess, whatever they throw the logo on, you can find that there, and that'll help support the podcast if you go check that out. There was also one other new note that I was going to throw out to the fans that are listening today. We're now affiliated with, I guess it's a new website called mutantfam.com. It's kind of a grouping of like-minded folks that are fans of Joe Bob Briggs and The Last Drive-In and just horror in general. Our friends over there says this. They describe it as a one-stop location for everything that members of Mutant Fam are making, from podcasts to YouTube channels, eatsy crafts, I guess that's how you say it, to short films and everything in between. So just go on mutantfam.com and you can we have a presence there. You can find all of our social links and go listen to the podcast and wherever you can find that there. And tons of other horror themed podcasts, YouTube channels, all that stuff there. So it's kind of think of it as a one-stop catcher for all these things. You go on there and you can just pick your poison. So it's all laid out in front of you. So go check out mutantfam.com if you get a chance. So I guess before we go, start going into the background and everything, we'll get into the initial reactions to it. First off, this is not the first time you guys have watched it?
No.
No, I saw it in the theater. That was the last time. The only time before watching it recently was in the theater. I saw it once.
Yeah, same here.
So, believe it or not, this is one of the few times that, well, no surprise with Smoke, but Will has watched something before I have. This is the first time I've watched this movie.
Get on, son.
Yeah. Once every 23 episodes, this happens. And actually, the next episode will be interesting too, but we'll get into that toward the end of the show.
And I think that's going to be another not a first, because there's at least one movie, maybe two, that none of us have seen. And this will be one of those two.
This is rare. This is rare that we run into something that none of us have seen. That's a little teaser for the end of the show. Stick around, you'll find out what it is for the next episode. So, Will, what were your initial reactions? When you watched this back when it came out in May of 2019?
Oh God, I loved it. I mean, just the fact that everything is a superhero right now, and somebody kind of did kind of an original idea based off of that was great. I mean, to me, like when you think Superman and if it went bad, like this is pretty much the beginning of it. What about you, Smoke?
Yeah, I kind of liken it a little bit to the. Remember, I don't think they still publish this at all, but back in the 70s and 80s, and when Marvel was publishing that What If series.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Now, of course, this is playing off DC and Superman and everything, but it's the same, that concept is like, what if? Well, what if those comics were R-rated as well? Because it's pretty graphic.
Now, DC, I'm not sure if they still do it, but they used to have those, basically kind of their same deal was Elseworlds, where it was like,
okay, yeah.
But it basically,
right.
I think they kind of described it as like, it's another multiverse, like the multiverse thing, where like, here's a different premise, but it's over here on this planet. And I think that's how they came up with the 52 planets or 52 universes or whatever in the DC multiverse. That's a whole deeper thing, but yeah, I think in DC they called it Elseworlds, but yeah, same premise. And I was thinking the exact same thing, when I was how to describe this to someone else. I came up, I thought of that one.
Yeah, because it kind of took me by surprise when I saw the trailer. Of course, trailers don't really matter. So they're going to make a trailer, and it's going to be something that's going to usually draw you in anyway. So when I saw the trailer, I'm like, yeah, this looks interesting. And I'll go check it out and see. I wasn't expecting much out of it, but really did love it that first time I saw it, and this second time around watching it. Just as good as the first time I saw it.
Myself, this being the first time I've seen it, I don't know exactly what I was expecting. I guess I expected a little bit more, evilness, a little bit more heinousness, I guess. I don't know how to frame it. But otherwise, it pretty much delivered on what I figured it would be, and I was satisfied with it. I enjoyed it, but I guess we'll go a little bit further down the road there. But that was kind of, later on, but that was kind of my initial reactions to it. So I guess before we dive into the old blow-by-blow on this one, we'll give a little bit of background information, what I was able to find out. And I'll defer to you guys if you were able to find anything else interesting out about it. The movie was released May 24th of 2019, so, it's within the last year of recording this podcast, by Screen Gems, Stage 6 Films, the H Collective, and Troll Court Entertainment. It was distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing, so this was a Sony product, because I think, Screen Gems and Stage 6 Films are owned by Sony, so this is Sony all over it. The total runtime for the movie is 1 hour and 30 minutes. Of course, if you've seen the movie, and, by this point you should have if you're listening to this, is rated R. Before I continue, that's another thing that I forgot to add. We are a spoiler podcast, so anything we say from this point forward, if you haven't seen Brightburn, go ahead and pause this, go check it out, and then come back and listen, because we're going to spoil the hell out of it. So, fair warning. It's listed as at least this is on IMDb, it was listed as a drama first, horror second, then mystery third. So that just kind of tells you how all over the board this movie kind of is, right? And then if you were going to go on subgenre, you could say superhero, maybe thriller, I don't know, however else you want to classify it. But it's got a lot of tags you can attach to this one, in my opinion. Best I can tell, this movie was shot in Georgia, the state of Georgia, in pretty much the entire month of May of 2018. Its budget was, now I saw that one place I saw the budget was about $6 million, but then I saw another place at 6 to 12. So it's pretty fair to say it's somewhere in that range, I guess. It's probably a more accurate deal, 6 to 12 million to make it. In the U.S., it grossed $17.3 million. Its international total was $15.5 million for a grand total of $32.8 million altogether. So probably not as successful as they would have liked it to be, especially in 2019. That's not a lot of. I mean, that look, they made their money back and then some, but that's not a what you would say a booming success either, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I always think it's fair to kind of put these things in context when we can, because sometimes movies they don't play very long, so it's kind of hard to show what it was stacked up against. This one played wide, so it is fair to compare it against other things. The same weekend this came out, like I said, May 24th of last year, 2019, was the same weekend that the live-action remake of Aladdin came out from Disney. So that week, Aladdin smoked it with $91.5 million. But Brightburn, like I said, came in number 5 at $7.8 million in its opening, 7.8. But it was also that week up against the second week of John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, the 5th week of Avengers Endgame, and the 3rd week of Pokemon's Detective Pikachu. So, I mean, it had some stiff competition, but, now you're getting into that summer movie releasing time, right, when this came out. So, yeah, it got rolled up pretty quick by at least Avengers Endgame went on to become the most successful movie ever released, by a little bit over Avatar. And Aladdin, I'm pretty sure, ended up being one of the most successful of the year overall, too. And, of course,
Never heard of any of these.
Yeah, and, of course, John Wick 3 and Detective Pikachu all broke, well over $200 million a piece each, too. So it had some...
Detective Pikachu.
Some pretty stiff competition when this movie came out, and I don't think it had a lot of traction either. Like I don't think it played extremely long. I mean, I'm sure some bigger movies came along in the weeks following and just kind of booted it out after a few weeks. I don't think it lasted through the summer. Hell, it may not even lasted to the end of June. Why?
Yeah, I can remember when we saw it. I know we jumped on it because it was one of those we figured would be in and out real quick, and we wanted to see it in the theater. So. Yeah, I don't know how long it lasted, but I don't think it was long at all.
I'd say just a few weeks, wide at least. Not playing some second screen somewhere for a while. But, yeah, I don't think it lasted an extremely long amount of time. And I don't know what its sales are on DVD, Blu-ray, digital, and all that since then, but it's probably comparable to it now than what it made in the box office, I'm sure, or at least half of that. It was directed by David Yarovesky, who, from what I can tell, had only really directed a movie called The Hive, which I'd never heard of, a handful of years ago. And he also, I guess another thing you may or may not have noticed him from is he played the goth Ravager in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. He was one of the Ravagers, which there's a lot of those, obviously now you can connect the dots with James Gunn and some of the other stuff he's done. You'll see it, when I'm describing all these things or explaining some of these things, which leads me to the executive producer, James Gunn, who you would know from both the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and he's currently going to make the 3rd Guardians of the Galaxy movie after Disney fired him for some old inappropriate jokes or some old inappropriate tweets or something, right? Some stupid joke. They fired him, and I guess 6, 7, 8 months later decided to rehire him. So who knows what the hell?
Is it?
Yes.
Is the coast clear? All right, come on back.
Come on, man. Guardians made a shit ton of money for us. We want you back.
And literally everybody is walking out. We better bring him back.
Yeah. But the other interesting little part to that, though, is while he was gone, he came into an agreement with DC and Warner Brothers to make the Suicide Squad for them, which I think will be coming out in the next year or two, something like that. So now he's actually going to be one of the few guys that is going to play a huge part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Comics, whatever the hell they're calling it this week, movie universe. And of course, if for whatever reason you don't know him from those things, he actually started his career at Troma Pictures. When I was looking him up, I didn't know that. He had wrote or directed Tromeo and Juliet back in the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So
that's
his roots come from Troma Pictures, believe it or not. Probably one of his early claims to fame, though, is he made the movie Slither, and there's some other connections to that here as I go along. And there was another superhero movie he made called Super with Rainn Wilson from The Office.
I've wanted to watch that.
That's really good, and it actually, we'll go into it a little bit later on. It actually ties into this movie a little bit, Brightburn, just a tad. So there is a loose thread connection there, and it's the preacher from Curse of La Llorona that was also in
No, damn it.
Son of a bitch, that preacher from Annabelle, he's back.
Oh, so this is also part of the Conjuring universe. It all makes sense.
Yep, see? So we can all bring it back. So yeah, that's, if like I said, if for whatever reason you've never heard of him from the Guardians movies and all that success, Slither, Troma, the movie Super, and a handful of other things too, but that's the big ones.
If you hadn't heard of him from these big movies, then surely you've heard of these smaller.
Here's these really small ones that you can pick up at the convenience store on DVD for $2. This movie was written by Brian Gunn, which is James Gunn's brother, and Mark Gunn, which is James Gunn's cousin. Now, apparently, I guess
no relation.
Yeah, I think they've wrote some stuff together, including Journey to the Mysterious Island. That I guess it was the sequel, kind of, to Journey to the Center of the Earth, but it had The Rock in it. I think these guys. Yeah. I think these guys wrote that. Best I can tell. I didn't go too far down that path because it was very disinteresting. So this movie stars Elizabeth Banks as Tori Breyer. Once again, highly successful. You'll remember her from the Hunger Games movies, that original Spider-Man trilogy, the Tobey Maguire trilogy. She was, I think, Betty Brant or Miss Brant or something like that in all those movies. She was also in the movie Slither, so there's another James Gunn connection there. And another movie horror fans might remember called The Uninvited. It also stars David Denman as Kyle Breyer. That's Tori's, Elizabeth Banks, her character's Tori. That's her husband, Kyle Breyer. You'd remember him most as this is that connection we were talking about earlier to The Office. He was Pam's boyfriend, I guess, whenever Pam and the main dude, Jim. Like, basically, they kind of went back and forth flirting with each other or whatever, but she had this dude as a boyfriend this whole time until, I guess, they eventually, break that up, and then, they live happily ever after or whatever. But you may remember that from The Office. This is Pam's boyfriend from that. This dude's been in a ton of other stuff, nothing, in particular to point out, but he's been in a shitload of TV shows over the last, 15 years or so. 15, 20 years. This dude's been in, at least one episode of just, almost every major show that's come out in the last 15 years. It also stars Jackson A. Dunn as Brandon Breyer. This is the kid that the movie is about. The only interesting thing I could find, that he's been in other than this, is he played a young Scott Lang in Avengers Endgame. I guess in some flashback sequence in Endgame, he was a young Ant-Man. He's been in a handful of other things, but I think that was the thing that people might recognize him from. But I don't think that was a huge part or anything. But I'd say this was his breakout role. Also, one other, there are a handful of others. Mainly, this is a 3-person movie, right? I mean, there's not too many other major league characters worth going over, except toward the end. Once again, we're a spoiler podcast. Toward the end, right as the credits start up, you see Michael Rooker. As a guy on the internet, talking shit about the government hiding, stuff or whatever. I'm sure people that listen to this are going to be familiar with Michael Rooker from both the first 2 Guardians movies, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, in Walking Dead, of course, and he was in a movie called Slither. So there's this other connection here going on. Rotten Tomatoes, on the tomato meter, it got a 57%. The audience score, though, was 67%, so this is clearly the audience loved it a little better. And it's fairly consistent across the board, too, because on IMDb, they give it 6.2 out of 10 stars, which is still that 50 to 60% range, and that's out of nearly 58,000 ratings on there. And I think, the Metacritic score was fairly similar, too, in the 40 or 50 range or something like that. So you can tell it's somewhat divisive, really. If you're just looking at these critics and aggregators or whatever about what people say about it, it's kind of good but not great, I guess, level, is what I guess they're kind of the consensus is. So the IMDb synopsis: what if a child from another world crash landed on Earth, but instead of becoming a hero to mankind, he proved to be something far more sinister?
It's intermission time. Time to pause and refresh at the snack bar. During this short break, you can treat your taste of good food and sparkling cold beverages, including delicious Coca-Cola. If you're hot dog hungry, we have them. Sizzling, juicy hot dogs served in warm, oven-fresh buns. Plus a complete menu of all your favorites. Visit the Refreshment Center now. Enjoy delicious food and ice-cold Coca-Cola.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spookshow Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Just looking at kind of like the list of some popular mysteries and thrillers that are out there right now, which, kind of falls in what you guys may or may not want to listen to, that you can get with your free book if you sign up with our Audible trial, audibletrial.com/spookshow. There's a book called The Persuader by Lee Child that's pretty hot on there. The Guardians by John Grisham, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I guess it's, I'm not sure if it's it's called You by Carolyn Kepnes. I'm guessing it's the inspiration for that Netflix show, You.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm guessing this came first. I don't know what's first, the chicken or the egg. But either way, if you like that show on Netflix, You, here's a book. Buried Deep by Margot Hunt. Of course, the newer Stephen King book, The Institute. The Outsider by Stephen King. I mean, just tons of stuff on here. And like we said, if you use our audibletrial.com/spookshow, you get that one free book. If you decide you don't want to pay for Audible, or continue paying for Audible, you can cancel it and you get to keep that one free book. So I always think that's important to point out. Have you guys been enjoying anything lately on Audible?
Yeah, home improvement book called This Old Junk Hole. No.
What? By whoever wrote now I'm blanking on the name of the movie. Help me out.
Street
Trash. Street Trash. Whoever wrote Street Trash. That would be a book I'd pick up. And can you imagine it on Audible? That would be just insane.
Currently not available.
Yeah, not a real thing. But there are tons of other real things on Audible if you go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. All right, so to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Once again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. So there you go. If you want to go check out that Street Trash book that Smoke just made up, you can you can invent it.
Copyright that one.
About the junk hole. I was thinking. Well, we're sitting there recording. I don't know why the junk hole thing came to my mind for some reason.
You're always thinking about the junk hole. That's the problem.
Yes, that's it.
Smoke is actually recording this from the bathroom.
Yeah.
While using his junk hole.
From a tire house he built out in the middle of a junkyard that he takes random women to help the creepy hobos rape and murder her.
Third one from the last had syphilis.
Yeah. And you can just see the dude doing the math in his head, like, oh, wait a minute, what's that? Such a great movie.
As he scratches his crotch.
Oh God! If any of you at this point don't get the reference, we're talking all the way back to I believe it was episode 7. We talked about Street Trash from 1987. So that's one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. So I would highly recommend going back in the archives and finding episode 7 Street Trash and giving that a listen, because that was a good one. Before I continue, I have to say that this is episode 23. So episode 24, our next episode, I think it might be on the list as well too. So we'll see what happens. And once again, that's another teaser to the end of the podcast here. Stick around and find out what we're going to watch, because I think this is going to be another classic. So this one, Brightburn from 2019. It's hard to believe that 20 years into the new millennium, I'm still starting years off with 19.
Well, it did end with 19, so.
That's true. You see the scare about, like, they're telling you not to write down dates with just 20, because then they can add whatever year they want to on the end of it. If that isn't some old lady Facebook bullshit, I've never heard it in my life. All right, so anyways, 2019's Brightburn. It begins outside of the Breyer house. You see, like, a mailbox with the name Breyer written on it, and it's clearly a farmhouse, so they set that up pretty quick. And then you see, like, some infertility and pregnant books around, and then you see a man and a woman, which turn out to be Tori and Kyle Breyer. They're over there making out, about to have sex, and then they hear a huge crash outside. And then it cuts to, you see some home videos of a little baby boy. And then, like, some old home videos, first steps and all that kind of stuff. And then you see 10 years later. And then you see Tori, the mom, she's looking around for Brandon, who's the little boy. and it's time for him to go to school, and he's hiding somewhere, and she goes out to the barn, and she finds him, and he scares her. Ha ha. So you set up this thing where they kind of have this game that they play where he'll hide and she has to come find him, kind of thing. That's kind of setting it up for later in the movie. So then
with this creepy little whistle.
Yeah, like that. Kind of. I guess it's almost like a Marco Polo kind of game they're playing, with each other. So then you see Brandon in school. He's in class, and the teacher asks him a question, and you can tell that he's really smart, because she asks him a simple question, and he gives way too much information. So you can see there's something a little different already, right? He's super smart. Then there's a girl in the class that kind of smiles at him, so clearly there's a thing there. So then back at home, you hear kind of these voices, and it cuts to inside the barn, and you can see a light glowing up underneath the floorboards. And you hear backwards talking almost like then when you hear this and this happens, cut to Brandon laying in the bed asleep, the boy, and he starts having a seizure, convulsing in the bed. And then he just kind of stops and opens his eyes. And then he just gets up and jumps out the window. Or just kind of almost falls out of the window and then hits the ground. And then starts running around. So then I guess Tori hears that there's noises going on, the mom, and she goes out to the barn and finds him out there trying to open up these little cellar doors, or this little trap door kind of thing, in the floor, and he's trying to open them. So then she's kind of spooked by this, but she grabs him and puts him back to bed. Then the next day, Brandon's outside helping his dad in the yard and whatnot, on the farm, and he cranks up a mower, and then he's trying to crank it won't crank, and then he just slings the thing across the field, whoosh! That whole thing flies a couple of 100 yards away. Then the blades are still spinning because it starts. It's upside down and the blades are spinning. He walks up to it, sticks his hand in it, and it doesn't cut him, doesn't do anything. It just stops the blades, bends them up, doesn't hurt him at all. So now for real, this kid's done went Clark Kent for sure, or Kal-El. So then later on they're having it's Brandon's birthday, and they're having dinner for him at the local diner, which clearly to me looks like they took an old Hardee's or Carl's Jr., wherever you are in the country, your reference point.
Oh, yeah.
It took an old Hardee's and turned it into the local diner. I think it's
just close the blinds.
It's got to be. I didn't look this up, but it's got to be an old Hardee's because it looks exactly like one.
Yeah, when I was looking stuff up, even the thing that I found pretty much said exactly that.
Yeah, it's got to be an old Hardee's or a really old Burger King or something that they just painted up and. Which, honestly, that's kind of what it would be in a podunk town, right? It would be the old Hardee's that was there 15 years ago is boarded up. Now it's a mom and pop, But yeah, so they're there having his little birthday dinner with his uncle and his aunt, and they give him a gun for his birthday. And his dad Kyle says, no, we're not giving him guns yet, or we're not there yet with him. He's not old enough because I think he just turned 12, right? I think that's the age they established. Yeah. And so Brandon clearly is not happy, and he tells his dad to give it to him. He's like, "What the hell's wrong with you, boy?" Basically he's aghast that his son would talk back to him like that. So they just get up and leave. So then they decide, all right, well, maybe we just need to change the scenery. Let's just take him and let's go camping. And they're getting ready, they're kind of putting their shit in the car, getting ready the next morning to go camping. And Brandon's sitting there eating his breakfast, and then kind of nonchalantly just starts eating the fork. He's just gnawing on the fork, and his dad walks up Brandon, and he just takes the fork out of his mouth, and it's all bent up. So then they go upstairs, and they find pictures up underneath his bed of there's some hot models or something, bikini pictures. And then they kind of flip through the pictures, and then it's fucking autopsy pictures or something. You see pictures of intestines, and what the hell? It gets darker and darker with each picture they see.
And then the wife, or she says, "Is this a guy thing?"
Yeah,
he's like, "What?
No,
no guy
thing I've ever heard of."
It falls under the category of to each their own.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe for Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't know.
Yeah. So they decide that after that they go camping, and then Kyle is out there hunting. They're in the woods, and it's just the two of them with Brandon. And he decides to give them the talk. And he said, this is kind of the funny part, that awkward exchange of trying to explain this to your 12-year-old son, that it's okay to, basically tell him it's okay to masturbate, if you've got these feelings, And I thought it was funny.
The kid's reading it all wrong.
Oh, yeah, he's completely reading it wrong. It's if you have these urges, you can act on them, He's like, right now? No, not right now.
I'm surprised the kid didn't just like fly directly off right straight to the house at that point. No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now.
Yeah. So then Tori wakes up in the middle of the night. They're camping, and Brandon's not in the tent. He's gone. So then you cut back to Caitlin, which is the little girl that smiled at him in class, earlier when he said something, like he gave the smart answer or whatever. Caitlin is her name, and she wakes up because she's in her room and there's music like playing on the computer. It's like an old love song or something. She kind of goes over and closes the computer, and then she turns around to walk away, and then the music starts playing again. She looks back and the computer's open again, and then you see kind of in the background that Brandon's in the room, like he's behind the curtain or something like that, right? So she realizes someone's in the room. She screams. Her mom comes in. They look around, but he's not there. He's gone. So then, like the Kyle and Tori, his parents, they're looking for him now that they've both realized that he's not in the tent. So they're kind of in the dark in the woods looking around for him, and they're yelling for his name. And then Tori turns around and he's standing there, and he's kind of the jump scare moment. So then Tori meets with the school counselor, which happens to be, I think that's her sister, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think it's. I never quite got the thread there. So like, it's Brandon's aunt, obviously, but that's her sister, correct? I believe so. She's
I think so, because I think the guy was. They're just friends, right?
I think they're just by marriage or something.
Brother-in-law, her brother-in-law, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that's her sister, who's the school counselor. It's his aunt. So she's meeting with him. There's nothing to concern about. I'll talk to him. So then, because she's talking to her about Brandon, I should add. So Kyle, the dad, hears a noise outside at the farm. He hears some chickens, and like hears a noise, and the chickens are kind of roused up. So he gets his gun. He figures it's a wolf or something like that, or I believe so is what he said. And he gets a gun and goes outside, and then Brandon is just standing in there, like in the chicken coop, like just staring at the chickens, not doing anything. He's just standing there staring at them creepily.
They're going crazy.
Yeah, but they're going nuts. So like, Kyle takes him, all right, go to bed. What the hell are you doing? It's late, So then he hears it again, and then he goes outside to the chicken coop again, and the chickens have just been torn all to hell. Like, they're just ripped apart, all of them, dead. So then he goes and gets Tori, and he shows her what has happened, and he thinks it's Brandon. So you're kind of sowing the seeds of like, I think there's something wrong with the kid, and he's kind of coming to terms with it a little bit. So then the next day at school with gym class, they're doing trust falls. These are like weird trust falls too. Like it's a small little circle, and they're just kind of pushing a guy. Like I don't remember doing it like that. I'd be like, what the fuck? Get off me. Like it's just this really tight circle, and they're just pushing the kid. So of course Brandon gets in the middle of it, and Caitlin's creeped up by him, or creeped up. She's creeped out by him because she swears that she saw him in her bedroom that the night before or whatever. So when he does the little trust fall towards her, she's just like, oh, he's a pervert, and like screams and lets him fall, and he hits the ground. And then she gets in trouble from the gym teacher. He's like, no, you're not doing the exercise right. This is a trust fall thing. So if you don't bend over and pick him up, you're gonna fail the class. And she reaches her hand out, and he grabs a hold of it, and he just crushes her hand and snaps it because he's mad about all this happening. Like I guess he's got the hots for her, but she doesn't reciprocate, so now he's pissed, acting on his urges again. So then like all the parents are called to the principal's office or whatever for this, and Caitlin's mom is just straight up talking shit about Brandon, right there in front of his parents. Like I know this is a pretty shitty thing that just happened to your daughter, but like, man, I tell you what, right now I might knock your ass out if you're talking about my kid straight to my face like she was, in this principal's office. So yeah, she basically calling him like a bastard or something like that, right? Because like I guess it's known knowledge that they just adopted him, that they didn't have him.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, do you know who his real parents were? Like, fuck you kind of thing, So Tori and Kyle, they kind of have a conversation about all this recent weirdness. They finally confide in each other. Like Kyle's like, yeah, I saw him. Like, I think he killed the fucking chickens and all this shit. And she's like, yeah, well, he was the other night he was in the barn, like trying to get into the old spaceship under the floorboard thing there. Like, did he see it? No. So now they finally confide in each other that this shit's going on with him. Then, of course, that night, the barn doors are glowing again with the voices that and once again...
They're playing the Beatles?
Yeah, Paul is dead. Then Brandon goes there. Right at the same time, like it shows Tori, like in another room, she's Googling a meteor event that happened in 2006, which would have been when the little ship fell, which I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning. Like basically, I guess that's kind of what you gather. Like when that noise outside, that it was a meteor or something that hit the ground, and then that's how they found him, right? Like I think you've kind of come to that conclusion by this point, that this meteor hits the ground and they found the kid and they adopted him, right? We didn't go deep into that when we first started off, but so she's looking up, like she's Googling something, which to me it seems like 12 years. Within that 12 years, wouldn't you have like Googled something about this meteor event? And that's and that this might have happened and someone else might know about it or anything? You wait until your kid might have turned into a alien serial killer before you look this up.
Clearly, you never adopted an alien child that just fell into your lap.
Well, there was that one time back in the 80s, but so anyway,
I got the psychologist for that. Here's your problem. He's a fucking alien.
So Brandon's out in the barn trying to open this trap doors, and he finally opens the doors, and then he starts like chanting, like talking like chanting along with the noise that's coming out of there. And then he's floating in the air when Tori walks in and sees this, and she kind of like, what the hell, Brandon? And then he falls, but he falls on the spaceship, the craft, or whatever you want to call it down there, and he gets cut on his hand. And then that's when she tells him, like, yeah, we found you from a fucking alien meteor. She basically just breaks the news to him right there, so he's pissed and like runs off. But as he's mad and he takes off, like he's like kind of like stomping back to the house, I guess. And he's I guess he's trying to interpret what the chant is, and he's able to interpret "take thee," pretty quickly. And then eventually he says he catches on to the last word as "world," so take the world. And then his eyes glow, and then like heat vision, like he screams like blast of heat vision, which I thought was a cool little scene. So then he goes to Caitlin's house, the little girl once again, who he just crushed her fucking hand and snapped it at the wrist. He goes to her house in the middle of the night with flowers, and she says they can't talk. She said, "My mom tells me not to talk to you." He says, "Oh, I'm about to take care of that," and then he leaves. So then you cut to Caitlin's mom, who apparently like works the late shift down at the old Hardee's diner, and she hears some noises, and then all the windows inside, I guess she's in there by herself, obviously. All the windows inside the restaurant fog up, and you see this little, like, BB symbol that he's been drawing, like sketching and stuff in his books. It's kind of like a backwards B and a forwards B, but like a spike kind of look to it, They're all over the windows when the windows fog up. Like, he's done wrote it like 100 times on the windows. And then the light fixture on the ceiling blows, and a shard of glass shoots like right in her eye. And this is probably one of the more fucked up moments of the movie, because she decides to pull the glass out of her eye right then and there. And it's not a small piece. It's like, a couple of inches long, like pulling this shard of glass out of her left eye, and then like blood gushes out and shit. It's pretty gross. Like, I don't see how you can sit there and watch that.
Lucio Fulci wooden splinter eye. No, it's not quite that long.
Yeah. I don't see how you can sit there and watch it and like, God almighty, like you're going to cringe watching this. It's pretty rough.
And I thought the special effects on that was pretty good, just because it follows her eye around.
Yeah. You mean like afterwards when she pulls it out, and then like her vision and everything?
Well, no, I meant like when it was still in her eye, and like, your eyes naturally move, and like the shard is just like following her eye.
Oh yeah. It
moves around.
Yeah, it's moving. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes you like, oh god,
Yeah, like I said, it's hard. It's hard not to cringe watching that. It's pretty fucked up. So she pulls it out, and then like you said, it's kind of like the first person shot where you can see out of her eyes, but like one side of the screen's kind of bloody because her that eye's all messed up, and the other one's fine. So she knows someone's in there, but she can't quite make it out with her vision all messed up. So he's stalking her around, but he's not really revealing himself. He's just kind of like running around or flying around in the room, not really doing anything. But so she's trying to get away, and she goes into the freezer and closes the door. Then he, I'm assuming the old heat vision, laser vision, coming out of his eyes. He like saws the door in half with his heat vision, and then just pulls the door, open, like out. So the freezer door just blows out. That was another thing too. Like, so are you to assume like that's him like burning it and then just pulling it and flying backwards, or does It's almost like maybe he's so fast. I kind of thought that maybe there might be like some telekinesis involved here. Like, does he have? I mean, I know they never quite explained his power set, right? But like, are you to assume he's just that fast? Like he just comes up and pulls the door back and then goes to the back of the room, or do you think
that's what I would assume?
Or do you think he has some kind of telekinetic power?
Too, I was thinking just a fast, super fast, super strong.
Yeah, that he
just melted the door with his laser vision and then pulled it into the restaurant,
and then just kind of like flew back to the back of the room or whatever.
Yeah.
Either way,
that's what I was.
I just didn't. It kind of felt a couple of times like maybe it's just because they wanted to show how
like
fast
they might go
was.
that way.
Yeah, that like there might be some telekinesis or something, going on with him. But I guess he's so powerful and so fast. I guess is what they want to show that. It almost looks like telekinesis. He's so fast. But yeah, he pulls the door off, and then he's kind of standing there for a second. And she's like, "What the hell?" And then he just speeds at her. Like you don't see what he does. He just kind of whoosh, whooshes at her real fast. So then it cuts to the next morning. He's playing it cool. Like, no, I was mad last night, but everything's good. We're all good. With his parents, so they're like, all right, that's weird, but okay. So then you see the cops down at the diner. They're investigating because she's gone, and they can tell something happened. They just figure it was a robbery, but they're just, you watch them kind of look over the scene there. Then Brandon is at school with his with Aunt Counselor there. They're kind of talking about things, and he kind of leans into a threat a little bit, like if you're gonna say anything, you probably shouldn't, kind of thing. But she's like, well, I got to do what I got to do. It's my job, kind of thing. So then that night at her house, Brandon shows up and tells her not to talk to the sheriff because basically, like, yeah, that's not going to be good for me, my parents, and it's especially not going to be good for you. So she's like, all right, and then you should probably go on home. He's like, yeah, I'll walk home. I'm good. And then he just closes the door. But, like, there's weird shit going on, because he's probably flying around out there and fucking with the security system and all that. So then Brandon's in the house, like, creeping around and stuff. And his uncle, Noah, comes home. He's been out drinking with Brandon's dad. He comes home, and then he eventually, like, he's in there brushing his teeth or something. And then he finds Brandon in the closet wearing the hood. He's like, what the hell's wrong with you, little creep? Like, walking around in here with a hood on, with a stupid-looking hood. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to take you home. So he, like, get in the car, and then, like, he walks around, and Brandon's not there. So what the hell? And then all of a sudden, I guess Brandon just grabs a hold of him and tosses him into the garage door. So then, now I thought it was a weird reaction. So, like, he grabs him, throws him into the garage door, and then he just decides to get into his car and drive away. Like, you would think your next reaction would be, like, to go in the house and make sure your wife's okay, right? But no.
Yeah, same here. Like, that entire scene, I'm just like, he really doesn't care about his wife.
Yeah, he just gets in the car and like he's trying to get away, or is he trying to find him? I don't know what the hell. It's like maybe that just spooked him out and he didn't know how to react to it. I don't know. It was kind of a weird play there, but either way, he gets in his car, his SUV, and he's driving down the road, and then all of a sudden Brandon flies out of nowhere and like hits the side of the SUV, and then the lights are going on and off, like the car is kind of like can't get it cranked, the old horror scene of come on, trying to crank the car. And then he looks like this is a pretty cool scene though, when like the headlights of the SUV are flashing on and off on this back road that he's on, and you see Brandon standing there, and then they cut off and they come back on and he's gone. It does this a couple of times. Oh no, yeah, when he sees him, I thought this was kind of funny. When he sees him and then they come back on and he's gone, he's like, nope, nope, not cool, nope.
Oh, yeah, 'cause at that point he was hovering above the ground.
Yeah. Oh hell no. Nope.
I think that's what everybody would be saying, like in real life, if they saw somebody hovering above the ground. Nope.
Yeah. I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Nope. So of course then Brandon grabs a hold of the SUV and like lifts it up into the air, 100 foot or so, however far away, and then he just drops it straight down. And then the guy eats the steering wheel. It just basically snaps his fucking jaw right off, which I thought was pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
So then he's laying, but he's still alive, and he's laying in the road. And then Brandon comes over and like dips his finger in his blood, and like off his jaw there, and like writes that BB symbol on the road. Then you cut to he comes home a little while after this. He finally shows back up at the house, and his parents are like, "Where the fuck have you been at?" And he doesn't have a shirt on. And she's like, I was playing soccer, it comes up with some bullshit that they don't really believe. And he doesn't want them to take his shirt. He takes his shirt and goes on upstairs. I'm going to go to bed, But they're clearly suspicious that something's going on. Then Kyle, the dad, has a dream, this weird dream sequence of when they found him, which I guess kind of explains it a little bit more about, the specifically on like how the meteor fell and then they went out to the woods and found him kind of thing. But it's like this weird psycho dream of like, his wife turns around, she's got blood pouring off of her face, and then he looks down at the baby.
Blood starts pouring out of the baby.
Yeah, and then he looks down at the baby, and the eyes start glowing, and then like he's got fangs, like, and then he jumps back awake. So then they get a phone call from the hospital that that Noah's been in this accident, and they go down there. So then the next morning, they go to the hospital to aunt counselor there. They can't go see him or whatever because he's pretty fucked up. Then it cuts to the next morning, and Kyle and Tori, the parents, they tell Brandon that Noah has died, and he's got absolutely no reaction to this. He's just like, oh, well, that sucks.
I feel like you want me to cry, but
yeah,
I'm not going to.
Should I cry? That's fucking evil incarnate right there, if that's your reaction to it. So then Kyle loses it and basically accuses him of knowing about all this shit and doing it and everything about everything that's been going on. This is you, you basically you went evil, and I'm accusing you of it right here on the spot, Tori kind of no, how dare you say that about him, but they're kind of pushing back on each other about this. And then Kyle's pretty mad, but then Brandon grabs a hold of him and pushes him into the shelf. So he manhandles his dad. So then, he just goes to his room or whatever, or he leaves the room or something like that. And then eventually Kyle goes upstairs. He just goes up there and starts taking a shower. That's what it was. And Kyle goes up there, I guess to talk to him, and then he looks around in the room and he finds the shirt that he wouldn't show him the night before, and it's got blood all over it. So he shows this to Tori, and then they kind of argue about it. Look, here's your evidence. Something fucked up's going on here, and she won't hear it. Then it cuts to the sheriff down at the the police station, kind of making the connection that this BB symbol that you've seen in the movie, he saw it at the diner, and now he sees it at the car accident here on the scene there. So he's kind of making the connection. Something's going on here. So then Kyle and Brandon decide to go camping, or he decides to take Brandon camping. And meanwhile, while they're going out to go camping, the sheriff comes to visit Tori at the house and shows her this picture of the BB symbol. He's like, so you don't think it's coincidental that this BB symbol and his name's Brandon Breyer, kind of? She's like, no, fuck off, she shuts the door on him. So then she goes right upstairs and, of course, makes the connection that this is what it is, because he's been drawing these symbols all over his notebooks and all over everything, and him basically taking over the world and blowing it up. So then you go back to Kyle and Brandon in the woods. They're out hunting, and he's like, yeah, this looks like some deer tracks here, and Brandon does, and he bends over. Kyle straight up takes the rifle and shoots him in the head. No effect. So he turns around. I don't even think he says anything to him. He just basically chases him down as Brandon or his dad Kyle's running. Brandon catches him and then stares at him. Please don't kill me. Don't hurt me, son. Don't hurt me. And then just does the laser vision, blows his fucking head out, blows his brains out, just right through his eye sockets. So now he's truly lost. He's full on evil now for sure. What did you guys think of that scene, that particular scene there?
Yeah, that's pretty brutal in the theater.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I loved it. Now you've seen it again. If you watch The Boys.
Yeah.
There's a scene with that, which I personally thought was kind of funny as far as my viewings. Me and my wife watched The Boys, and when it happens in The Boys, I guess because everything's so ultra violent in that, my wife didn't react quite as much. But in this one, she almost wanted to turn away, and I was like, what's the difference?
And I grabbed her head and said, you watch this. So yeah, this was definitely one of the cooler scenes of the movie. I mean, it's fucked up, but it's a cool, for movie's sake, it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
So then...
here's something you really want to see Superman do.
Yeah, exactly. Which they have dabbled with these kind of things in the comics, not to go as far as to see Superman do it, but, in comics there have been characters that have had similar power sets that have done very similar things, so... I don't think you need to ever see Superman do it, because there's plenty of other depictions that are basically Superman of him doing it, so they don't never have to go there. So yeah, then Tori calls Kyle's phone, and Brandon answers, And she's like, "Where's Dad?" "Oh, he's gone." "Where is he?" "I think you know what I mean by that." "Where are you at?" He said, "I'm home, Mom," and then like crushes the phone. And then you see him like hovering, a couple 100 yards above the house. He's flying around. So then you see him like flying around and through the house, just like tearing the house up, and she's screaming and running around. And then the police finally
calls 911. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she manages to call 911 in this, and then the police eventually show up. Then like the sheriff and the deputy like walk up to the front porch, and then the sheriff is just obliterated right away, pretty much, right? Like, whoo, he's taken off the board, like just a splatter of blood. So then the deputy goes in the house, and then he eventually, like, she's kind of creeping around, like, looking for him, and then he eventually just grabs a hold of her and just pummels the shit out of her and tosses her right in front of his mom, like, she's beat all to hell. She's dead. Then, basically at this point, Brandon's coming for Tori, so she's running around, and she eventually like, jumps out of a window and then runs out to the barn because she recalls that when he fell down on that ship that it cut his hand. So she's thinking the metal off the ship might hurt him. So she makes her way to the barn, and she goes down to like get a piece of this off the ship, and then behind her you see Caitlin's mom. Remember the woman that works at the diner? She's like strung up on the wall naked, like she's been dissected. Like he's already done like a damn like dissecting the frog science project on her against the wall down there, which once again pretty fucked up. Which I was curious like what he did with her, right? So they had to come back around to that.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to her, and she's kind of strung up on the wall next to the ship there. And then now like Brandon comes, and now they're face to face. Tori and Brandon, mother and son, they're face to face. Now she takes the hood off of him, and she's like, I know there's good in there, and she gives him a hug, and then she pulls up that little piece of the metal off the ship, and she tries to stab him in the back. Nope, no dice. He's not having it. He catches her hand and then flies her straight to the roof. I guess pretty much about as far as he wanted to go. A mile up in the air.
Stratosphere.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically just shooting her up into space damn near it. And she's just kind of staring at him, and then he just lets her go, falls to the ground. And then he looks over to the left, and there's a plane coming toward him. And you don't see what happened, but then you see the aftermath of this. There's plane wreckage everywhere, right over the farmhouse there. And you can hear like a news report going on, like, pretty much everyone on board died, and also the people that live at the farm, Tori and Kyle Breyer, they also passed, but surviving is the 12-year-old son Brandon, and he's just sitting there like eating some Toll House cookies, in the middle of all this shit going on. And by the way, when they show the wreckage, you go by, you can see the BB symbol like written on a part of the plane there in the background. Yes. And he's just eating a cookie, and then you see the words Brightburn. So after that, like it's really kind of like the credits start, but then there's like some immediate cutaways. And you see, this is where you see Michael Rooker's character. Apparently the character is called the Big T. I didn't quite catch that, but apparently that's his character name in this. He's just one of those, like, I guess, doomsday, guys that have one of those weird YouTube shows that just talk shit about the government all the time. I guess it's kind of the role it is. And he's sitting there just talking about how, like, the government is hiding the fact that there's these funky things going on. Now, I don't get all the connections. I imagine that these must be attached to something. But I did notice. But I did notice that one of the ones that they show there, when he's referring to some of these other things that have been going on, one of them is Rainn Wilson's dude from Super over in the corner. So
was it? Yeah, I wouldn't have got that yet because I still haven't seen that. But.
Yeah, so clearly that means that they're in the same universe here, right? This Brightburn and now Super, and I don't get the other references. I guarantee they're referring something. I didn't look it up.
Well, I got Aquaman out of one because didn't they mention something about a fish type creature?
Yeah, but and they said something about a witch, right? Like some kind of witch doing some stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but I believe the witch is Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
With
yeah,
the lasso.
That's what I was thinking too. Because he mentioned
something
like the witch with the rope.
Yeah, something I'd seen was talking about like if you like look in the pictures and some of the words in the background, you see Scarlet Speedster. Which obviously is the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then an alien, which should be the Martian Manhunter.
So it's kind of like connecting this shit to the
Justice League, sort of.
Yeah, connecting it to DC,
Justice League.
But it's not connected to DC at all, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
No. Yeah.
But at least the Super one, there is a connection to another movie there with that. So whenever you get a chance, go check that one out. Which is kind of weird comparing these two movies because they're not similar at all. Which I think would be kind of funny if they were connected. But Yeah, whenever you get a chance, go check that one out, and you might see some more of the connection there. And frankly, for me, it's been a while since I watched that one, so I'm not remembering all the the ties that may bind there. But yeah, I remember that one being good, just not in this same vein. Different kind of movie.
Yeah. I think I actually have it on DVD. I just haven't got around to watching it.
Yeah, like I said, I remember it being really good, and I enjoyed it. It's been a while since I watched it, so I can't tell you all the ins and outs. But yeah, for you guys, go check it out. Anyone else, go check it out. I'm sure there might be some more connections there that you might be able to point out now that you've seen Brightburn. So I'm guessing that would be his name with the BB and all that. He's Brightburn.
I would think, yeah.
Yes.
I guess that's and it plays into his name, Brandon Breyer, as well.
Yeah.
I guess
The BB, Brandon Breyer, Brightburn. Right. Yeah. So I guess that's where it goes from here.
And it's kind of like his evil Superman symbol, right? Where Superman's got the S on his uniform. That's like his S.
Yeah, exactly.
This BB written in people's blood and whatnot and whatever else.
I've heard, or I read a couple things. It sounds like it sounds like they'd be willing to make another one, but I don't know if it was successful enough to ever make another one again. So this might be a one and done kind of thing. I don't know. Who knows these days? With reboots and remakes and sequel mania, it wouldn't surprise me if there's another one of these days. Especially since James Gunn's going to have more than enough money to do it himself if he wanted to.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is his time.
True. I mean, him being knee deep in the Marvel and DC universes now, he may not. And I wouldn't anticipate it anytime soon. I mean, hell, this hasn't even been out for a year, so I mean, this is probably years down the line. And maybe we can refer to this podcast years from now when they make Brightburn 2. But I'm sure it's coming eventually. I mean, they made other Cloverfield movies, right? So if you can go down that road and make a bunch of movies off of that, then surely you could make a bunch of movies off of this if you wanted to. Especially with the superhero.
Yeah, because you really do want to see more of that.
Oh yeah,
that last part where he just destroys that airplane. Is like what else? You just want to kind of see him go completely full evil that way.
Yeah,
because they've already got it in this little cosmos of their world, the husband and wife and him, and then now it's he's out basically.
So I guess it's time for our star rating. So. Will, where do you land on this one?
Well, I enjoyed this one. As soon as I saw the previews, I knew I wanted to go see this at the movies, and I loved it when I was at the movie. So I'll give this one a 4.
Solid. Smoke, where do you land on this one?
Yep, I really enjoyed it too. I, like Will, I saw the trailer, and the trailer hooked me in. Saw it in the theater. Now this is the second time watching it, but I give it a good 3 1/4.
Myself, I think I'm going to kind of land in between both of you. I'm going to give it 3.5. It's kind of what I had in mind even before you guys said that. Once again, I'll go back to what I said toward the beginning of the show. Like, I wasn't disappointed at all. I enjoyed it. It was basically what I thought it was. But in some ways, that kind of hurts it a little bit too, because you almost saw everything. I don't know how to frame it. Like, you just saw the writing on the wall. You knew how this was going to go, right? There were no huge shockers here, I don't think. But, there's something to be said about that, too. Not everything has to be shocking and twist-turning. And, sometimes what it is what it is, and they can lay it out for you and you can still enjoy it. I was just a little bit, I think I was just wanting a little bit more evilness, like I said earlier, more viciousness out of him, Like, you definitely saw it, Obviously, I mean, he straight up blew his dad's brains out, right, with laser vision, and then he he flew his mom up to damn near space and then just dropped her. So that's pretty damn evil. I guess I just figured there'd be at least one scene of him doing mass chaos. And you did get a little taste of that in that little cutaway in the credits. He takes out a whole building or something like that, and this. I guess I just figured that somewhere along the line toward the end there'd be like, you just see him level a city or something like that, just something out of this world kind of thing, but you never really saw that. So But yeah, I mean, 3.5 is solid. I mean, it was damn good. I'd definitely check it out again. And so I think we all agree on that, right? Like, we all enjoyed it and highly recommend it. And, you'll enjoy it on multiple viewings. So that's 2019's Brightburn. So we go from the highs of Brightburn to possibly the lows of the 80s. Next episode, we are going to watch a movie from 1986 that, honestly, I didn't even know existed until this past week or so. I don't believe any of us have watched it, so we're going to throw down and watch it. It's called Never Too Young to Die, starring John Stamos, Vanity, and Gene Simmons. Oh, and it also has George Lazenby, which wasn't he like James Bond in one or two of those movies? And And a little-known actor named Robert Englund. He's in it as well. I want to read you a couple different synopses because these are really good. This one, there's, you know how IMDb does a number of synopses sometimes, but this one is written by Brian VN at earthlink.net. It says, a top-secret agent is murdered, so his estranged son, a high school gymnast, teams up with his dad's attractive female partner to stop the psychopathic hermaphroditic gang leader who killed him and now plans a major terrorist attack. Another synopsis, this is on Google, and this one's even better. A spy's son, John Stamos, inherits the case of a heavy metal he-she, Gene Simmons, out to foul city water with a floppy disk. So, yeah, none of us have seen this, I don't believe, right? Didn't we establish that before the show?
No, and I have no fucking clue how a movie with Gene Simmons as a heavy metal he-she got by me in 1986, but it did.
Things you didn't think you'd hear today is, man, Gene Simmons as a heavy metal he-she got past me. But you heard it here first, folks. So, and also I should add, this doesn't necessarily follow our, somewhat of a tradition of, it being horror. Although I guess, it just depends on your definition of horror, right? Like Will considers Catwoman a horror. This might be horror for a different reason, kind of. This might be horror for a different reason, kind of thing. But it's an action adventure comedy drama, you name it. Apparently, I'm guessing some type of post-apocalyptic edge to it. We'll all find out together, folks. So come. And
I think we'll probably end up broadening our horizons a little bit as far as including some of these off the wall cult films.
Yeah,
that might not be labeled horror, but are definitely in that same ballpark of just enjoyable or just really bad,
or just so bad it's good kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think this is going to fall in that category. So yeah, this is going to kind of be the start of us kind of going down a little side road, if you will. The back alleyway of what we've been watching.
Then the junk hole.
Next to the junk hole, there's the back of the video store, and that's where this is. So come listen next episode to Never Too Young to Die from 1986. Last I checked, just to help you out, I think you can rent it on a number of platforms, but I'm pretty sure you can go on Tubi TV and it's free to watch. If you want to go check it out there, as of the recording of this podcast, at least, that could change, but. So yeah, go check that out.
You think we could work in an interview with John Stamos? Get some background on this.
I think we need to ask if they did a sequel called Never Too Old to Live.
No, it was called Never Again.
We can work on that. Never Again, now.
Yeah. I think George Lazenby's still alive, so maybe we can... What did you think of this? God damn, why did I do this?
I needed some money for Coke. So.
Yeah, I played James fucking Bond. I remember.
We do crazy things for drugs. Alright, so check it out next episode.
It was just one time there's this heavy metal he-she, but...
Alright, like we said before, you can, go to the All-American Spookshow at gmail.com if you want to email us anything. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TeePublic. Go check out mutantfam.com. So we're all over the place, so no excuses on YouTube, everything. So I guess for Will and the Smoke, I'm Josh, and we will see you next time here on the All-American Spook Show. Thanks a lot, guys.